Hey everyone, I'm Spencer.
I'm Lara, and we're married with board games. In this review, we will be opening up a box that fits tiny galaxies. No, not that game. We are talking about Small Star Empires, a 2 to 4 player area control game from Arcona Games.
It's definitely a small game, but we want to see if the gameplay is small or instead feels epic. After a quick overview at the table, we'll tell you what we think. Okay, Small Star Empires. I've set up for a 2-player game, but this does go 2 to 4. And here are all the components that come in the box. I'm going to start off with the basic game first, and then I'll introduce some of the different variants. But it comes everything you see here, and then a score pad for keeping track of your score at the end of each game. This board is a modular board, so it's made of these tiles that you can, I think they're the same on both sides, but you mix them up and they can be different orientation every time you play. Also, when you add more players, you'll add their starting systems, which has their color on them, into the board, and it really is customizable. This is the suggested setup from the rule book, so this is what I'm going to show you. Depending on the amount of players you have, will tell you how many ships you get. So in a 2-player game, you get to use all 4 of your ships at your starting system. In this basic setup, the other spaces you see are star systems. They have different numbers of stars on them. So this one only has 1, this one has 2, this one has 3. You've got some blank spaces, and then you have these nebula of different colors. Each player has their ships. Their colonies are these round ones. The red's hard to see on the tablecloth, but you've got the round colonies, and then you've got the trade stations that you can put out too. A turn structure is very easy. On your turn, you will move 1 ship and establish control. And that's it. What does that look like? You take one of your ships, and it can move any number of spaces really in one direction, as long as it's going straight and going in the direction off of its hex. So for example, this ship could, in theory, go all the way over here if it wanted to. There are some moving restrictions though. You cannot pass through a black hole, which there aren't any on the board right now. You can't move into a wormhole system, which aren't on the board anymore. You can't move into or pass through a system that is already controlled by another player, and you cannot move into one of your own systems. Now you can pass through it if you want to, but you can't stop there. After you move, you establish control by placing either a colony or a trade station on it. And that's your turn, then the next player will go. So I could, on my next turn, go here. I could put a colony here, then this player goes, they're going to put their colony here, then I'm going to take this ship that I've already moved, I'm going over here, I'm going to put this here, this ship's going to go, it can pass through itself, but it can't stop, so it's going to stop there. It's going to put a trade station here. And then, let's see, let me give you an example. So if I were to move here on 1 turn, I couldn't move over these guys because that's one of the restrictions on moving. So you got to be strategic about how you're going to move. You could, in theory, be blocked off by your opponent. But that's basically it in this basic game. You're moving and then placing a colony or a trade station. The game is over when no ship can make a legal move, or all of the players have put all of their colonies and trade stations on the map. Once that happens, you calculate your points. Here's how you do that. First of all, you'll calculate the points from your star systems that you control. So for the systems that you control where you have some stars, you get a point for each star that's on there. So for example, in this one, I would get 2 points. If I controlled this one right here, I get 3 points because there are 3 stars. So you calculate all of your points for each of the star systems you control. Next is nebula. You get a certain amount of points based on how many of each color that you control. You get 2 points if you have 1 nebula of 1 color, 5 points if you have 2 nebula of 1 color, and 8 points if you have all nebula of 1 color. Then those trade stations, you have to be strategic about where you place these trade stations because they're not worth anything to you unless they're adjacent to your opponent's structures. You get 1 point from each of your trade stations for each adjacent colony, trade station, or a home system belonging to other players. So you could, in theory, if you happen to have one right in the middle of all of your opponents, you could end up with 6 points from 1 trade station. Finally, you get a 3-point bonus if you're the player with the largest territory, which is the most connected systems in a single territory. And that's it. Whoever has the most points wins. If it sounds basic, it's because it is. You can play with some variants though. For example, you can play with the black holes or the wormholes. So Here's the black hole. You can place these on these empty spaces. So I'll put a black hole here. I'll put a wormhole here and a wormhole here. Black holes are basically blocks. You can't fly through them at all. So those just serve as to make it difficult for you to move around the map. Wormholes, though, are kind of like teleporters. So if this blue ship were here, if it wanted to, it could go and then come out of this one going in a different direction. So that's how wormholes work. It's a way for you to easily travel across the map. You can also use these discovery tiles. So instead of placing the black holes and the wormholes out, you can mix these up, place them on all of the empty spaces here, and then when you play and you fly into one of those, you reveal it and see what it is. Well, that's a blank one, so ignore that. That should be thrown away. This can count as any one of the nebulas you want to if you control that one. There's another blank one. This is a refueling station. So if you go here, you can essentially, immediately after you reveal this one, you can go and colonize an adjacent system. And it's worth a bonus point at the end of the game. And the final one, there are two other ones actually you might find. Here's just another star system. Here's an asteroid belt. If you find that, your ship gets destroyed and it can only move 2 spaces instead of an unlimited number of spaces. In order to repair it, you have to make it back to your home system and then you can make it back to normal. This right here is an abandoned trade station. If you colonize this, it counts as a trade station at the end of the game. So like we talked about, or if it's adjacent to your opponent. So it does add an element of exploration if you put these tokens on there, so that changes things up quite a bit when you play. One other variation is open borders. So what you can do is, this allows you to pass through your opponents, but when you do that, you have to pay them one of your colonies and as a payment to be able to pass through. So at the end of the game, for every one of your opponent's colonies that you have, you get 2 points. So the game offers quite a bit of different ways to play it, and that is small star empires.
Small star empires. I told you it took up a small space in a box. It also takes up a small space on the table.
She went there.
I went there. You went there.
I did. I did write it.
Yeah, you certainly did. Especially calling it a box.
That fits
the right size
yeah.
for tiny galaxy.
Yes, but enough of that.
Enough.
So what I feel like, so this was a Kickstarter game, and you don't ever know what you're getting with Kickstarters.
Yeah, that's so true.
But this one, it's a really good production.
Yes, it is. I love that they were pretty meticulous in making sure that each of your like your ship and your colony and your trade station are very unique and easy to differentiate.
Yeah, well, and they're good quality plastic, whatever that is. Not rubber.
I think it's plastic.
Okay.
It doesn't bounce like rubber.
And then the cardboard. I mean, everything. It's a very well made game, and I appreciate the score pad.
They're not flimsy. The different quadrants that you put down to make your board.
Right. The score pad's very helpful, and it comes with a pencil. I mean, because who has pencils laying around the house?
Mini golf quality.
It really is. So yeah, major points for the production quality on the game. Not as many points for the artwork per se. I feel like the asteroids and the black hole and wormhole are kind of just basic.
So can I tell you what this makes me think of?
Tell me.
Artwork. My older brother had an NES Star Trek game that you were yes. You were on the bridge and you were looking out through the screen and like you were Captain Picard, and you saw these things coming at you and you had to steer through them. You were Will Wheaton or whatever, and it was that's what I thought of when I saw this. It made me think of that. So that was like early 90s Star Trek, digitally kind of concept. Yeah, well, the box art was really good, and the rule book, it just would have been nice to see all of that as a cohesive product on the tiles. But in Arcona's defense, these are small components. Not a whole lot of room to
They're
fit.
Small.
Oh, hence the name.
Yes.
And so there's not a whole lot of room to fit some big elaborate artwork.
Okay.
Just putting that out there.
Are you employed by Arcona?
No, I am not.
Okay.
I want to make sure you all know that.
All right, so, but that's probably overall on the presentation, right? You have anything else to say about that?
Nope.
Okay, well, let's get into the gameplay.
Okay, yeah. I think it's very quick. All you're doing is you move and place your ship, and wherever you put your ship down, you either put a colony or a trade station. One thing that is a big part of that is since each space is a hexagonal shape, you have to move in a straight line along the hexes. You can't kind of like curve it or jiggy jag it or anything like that.
So that makes it real easy, right? You just move, plop. I mean...
Maybe. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Right. But yeah, so basically it's a fast-moving game. And you said
the concept is easy.
Well, yeah. And you said, what does it make you think of?
It makes me think like a space chess or a space checkers or something.
So yeah, you're...
Move.
It's not as like, in depth as chess.
There's no ability cards to be played or anything like that.
But I get what you're saying is... Yeah, I get what you're saying is you move and it's pretty quick moving.
Yeah, it is a extremely quick moving game.
Well, and easy to learn because of all of that.
Yes.
Especially the basic game.
Yes.
Very easy to teach.
That's right.
And because of that, I think that basic game might be a little too basic.
You say that. I mean, if anything, that's a great way to learn the game.
Right.
But I think after learning it, then you will want to go ahead and move on and not keep playing that first one over and over again.
And we also played it with 2 players, so that also might affect, a lot more player interaction at that basic game. You've got more people blocking you, and more people you have to avoid as you're flying around. So that could make it more interesting. But at 2... basic game is pretty basic. But you kept hinting at there's more to the game than that.
Yes, there are some variants.
There are some variants, and they add so much more. I really like the exploration aspect to it.
Oh, I agree.
Like you've got those tiles that you put down, you fly, you don't know what's there. From game to game can be different.
Spencer loves to go and find those, even though he finds every single asteroid field.
Yeah,
I
do.
Every single one.
Every single one. But that's cool. So being able to fly around not knowing what's there, like space. And you've got the black holes you can put on there that, you can't fly over those at all.
Or you might find a fueling station that allows you to go colonize just one more thing on your turn.
Well, the wormholes are cool, that you can put those out there at the beginning of the game and use those essentially as shortcuts.
Like jump through.
Yeah, that's cool. And then I really like, and this is the one I think this should be almost essential when you play, is the open borders one, where you can choose to fly over your opponent if you want to, but in order to do that, you have to pay them.
Well, I understand why. It's not part of the basic. It's just so that you learn that that's costing you.
Yeah.
Right, Spencer?
It is costing you.
It's costing you.
Yeah.
I beat him so bad.
Yeah.
Because he kept paying to fly over my stuff.
But
so
I like that, though.
I didn't mention that. You mentioned it in the components overview of whenever you're flying and you're choosing what line you're traveling in, you cannot cross your opponent's line in the basic game. But in this open borders one, you have to pay a colony. Well, you basically have to give your opponent one of your colonies. That gives them bonus points.
Bonus points in the game, and there's fewer colonies for you to use.
Which you found really quickly, because then it came down to the point that all you had were trade stations.
Yeah. But I like that because it is an additional risk, a decision that you have to make. Is it worth it for me to skip over this person and pay them, or can I find another way to gain points?
So true, and I'm very interested to play this with 3 and 4 players, because I want to explore that, as well as my initial in a 2-player game. My initial gameplay is go and claim as many of the nebulas as possible, and after that, then start going for the 3 planet systems, then the 2 planet systems. And I think that when you get into those 3 or 4 player games, you can't rely on that, because by the time it gets to your turn, I'm pretty sure most of those nebulas will be claimed.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see how that's going to work.
Those nebulas can end up offering you quite a bit of points if you claim them all. And
again, with the open borders, like you talked about, when you get to a 3 or 4 player game, there's going to have to be more of that crossing an opponent's station or colony or whatever, and so there will be a lot more paying paying your opponents a colony. That'll be a lot of fun to figure out.
Well, another thing that's fun to figure out is how to block. You figured that out in our most recent play.
Yeah, one day you'll figure it out.
You basically, by forming a line of your colonies, you can cut off your opponent.
And they are stuck to one half of the board.
One half of the board, yeah. And so that's really neat to explore.
One thing that I did not plan on was I built a trade station on a nebula, and then you filled every hex around the trade station with your colonies.
And I did that by accident.
That was really cool.
Yeah,
that was really cool for Lara.
So one thing that might be really cool for other people, some people will say, I don't like randomness, I don't like dice, I don't like drawing cards.
Yes, that's true.
There's no randomness in this game, unless you play with those exploration tiles. You mix those up and play them on there.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Because there are, well, at least in a two-player game, there are more of those tiles than there are spaces.
Yeah.
So there are going to be several left out. You have no idea what's on the board.
Right. So if you don't like randomness, this might be your thing.
I agree.
Because basically all your strategy is based off of your decisions and what the other players are doing. There's not really any kind of chaos introduced into it.
Very true. And on top of that, it's a quick game.
Yeah, very quick.
Because of the less randomness, but just because all you're doing is moving in that line and putting down your colony. It's funny how quickly you run out of colonies and go, okay, game's up, time to total up points.
Well, for us, it was 15 minutes each game. Basically, every game we've played has been about 15, 20 minutes.
Right, and that's what Arcona, that's what they advertise.
I do think, though, that people that like more strategic decisions probably won't find enough here to hold their interest. But I really don't think that, that was their goal. I mean,
I agree. I think that what they were going for was this quick, easy game that, it's going to give your mind just a little jog. It's not a hard workout for the brain. It's just a little warm up.
Yep. So, to sum all that up, Small Star Empires is a small, quick, and portable game, but does have enough variations to make it fun.
Small Star Empires is a fun little game that we enjoy quite a bit for what it is. And that's the thing. It doesn't set out to be this giant 4X space opera game. We feel like it accomplishes its goal of providing a short area control game in space.
The multiple variants and modular board provide a great replayability factor too, so we could see this game get some mileage with the right game group. It's probably a little too light for our liking, but hey, there's nothing really wrong here.
And so, having said all of that, we give Small Star Empires a rating of 7 and a seal of approval. Also, we mark this one as couple approved.
We're going to box this one up for now. Be sure to check out our past reviews right here on the Dice Tower.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.